Hello everyone, welcome to Gaming. I'm Nick of the Comes, of course, Justin. Another week and another update in the games industry. This one is actually Destiny 2. I feel like that is a lot less energy than I should have brought to this, but whatever. If you know, we know that we're both Destiny gamers, or at least I'm still a Destiny gamer. He's kind of off it at this point,
I'm
but
here and there.
here and there, here and there. So I figured at least we should cover our initial impressions, or at least well, kind of our both initial impressions. He's played through the first mission because he hasn't bought the full thing yet. Uh, Maybe never will, but I don't know. I have played through both the first mission and ensuing missions. Now, let me just start off the bat. This won't be a spoiler for the story. We're not going to go into that. So if you don't want to hear any about that, then don't worry. We're not going to cover that in this video. It's just going to be our initial impressions of just kind of how the game feels coming into the year of prophecy or whatever the heck they're calling it at this point. So let's just start off with I have a lot of notes. I have a lot of notes that I took for this one. Everything from the fact that despite the fact there were no long queue lines to get into this expansion, which you could probably say something on that note, but I won't. Still had issues. I know that when I was still trying to play the game, maybe this was local, maybe this was on their end, I don't know, but for some bloody reason, I kept bloody disconnecting. So I could never stay in for more than like a few, like 20 minutes at a time before the thing would just kind of immediately disconnect 10, 20 minutes.
Crash on you.
So it crashed at least half a dozen times. Generally, when I was like trying to switch loadouts or something like that, when I was trying to switch to prismatic or something like that, so I don't know, maybe that's been worked out at this point. At least on the PS5, I know that happened. I haven't tested on PC yet. Justin has.
Mm.
I didn't hear him have any issues on that front, so maybe it's
I
been
I
worked out,
haven't
maybe it hasn't.
see. Keep in mind though, this is the same for any expansion for Destiny throughout the entirety of its history. Crashes
Sure, there's always
galore.
issues. There's
So
always issues.
yeah, there's always going to be issues on that front, but I would say chances are there are likely going to be more issues for some people because this update has overall changed a very large amount of the content overall.
True, there's a lot of systemic issues we'll get into, but on terms of netcode, there shouldn't be any issues. Like I said, you'd think there'd be less because there's less people going in because there's no queue lines this expansion. I went in pretty early on and there was no queue line at all, and subsequent logons as of the result of the crashes didn't have any queue lines, so at least as far as I can tell, it's not caused by mass numbers. So
Mm-hmm.
to the surprise of literally no one, the netcode's just trash still.
Yes.
To the surprise of nobody.
Nobody.
But anyways, let's move on. Vendor rep is gone, first off.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in gathering rep with Zavala, Shax, or, if you still play Gambit, rest in peace, with the Drifter, that's all gone. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. I played a Strike here and there, for some loot. Haven't really played any Crucible or Gambit yet, so I don't know. We were talking before the show, and Justin postulated that it feels like they're getting rid of more ways to gain resources as a result
Like
because you did get stuff from
I,
the
I
reward
I can
tracks.
take this from my own experience. I
Hmm.
don't go to the vendors very often. Like Zavala, I don't go to Zavala often at all. I just play strikes, go through them, play a bunch of strikes, do my own thing, and then eventually I'm like, you know what? I'll go to Zavala, and I will have a bunch of stockpiled stuff that I could just get for free because I played a bunch of strikes. If it is the case where you can no longer get that, then that basically removes an avenue for players to get like just random free stuff. Now, to a slight degree, it's not too bad for players because this update does change things for like casual players, so it's not so bad there. But this
We'll
is
get into that.
still, yeah, we'll get into that. But this does still technically remove an avenue to just get free shit.
Yeah. Granted, it feels like, and they have retooled strikes. They have retooled strikes. There's a whole new system where it's like A, B, C, S. We're going JRPG route with this bloody thing. But after you get a certain level of pointage, right? Like for example, if you're going in the new strikes, if you get, as far as when I was playing, if you get a rank above B, so like 10,000 points by the end of the strike, you get a certain exotic. And that seems to be a continuous thing, though. Again, how it'll actually work out in terms of the, so borrowing a term, dollars and cents of actual reward quantity, That's definitely something that'll have to be looked into further. Again, this is an initial reaction of our kind of overall thoughts, so it'll be a bunch of different things, but not too much in depth of individual things because, like I said, a lot of this will come into just kind of like we'll have to really do the numbers and see, and there's just not enough time yet for people to have done that. But I'm sure there's at least some people that I don't know, maybe Cross has done all those numbers, who knows? But but yeah, so there's that. On the topic of reward tracks as well, despite the fact that the rep system is gone, like I said, the strikes have been retooled. What was I going to say with this? My brain just went blank. Oh, yes, that's it. Blues feel like blues again. Now, I don't know if Justin noticed, but I certainly did. We actually are getting a lot more blues now. We're actually
Yeah.
getting rares instead of just legendaries. Legendaries feel like legendaries again, which is nice.
Well, keep in mind that
I
does
guess
play into the fact that, like, because they've brought everything back down basically to, like, actual new light level where,
Zero.
like, everyone's near zero again, then it makes sense. It does make sense that, like, everyone's basically starting from scratch, so it gives them the ability to properly even things out to this is rare, this is legendary, and this is an exotic.
in any uncommons or commons, but I think those truly have gone the way of the dodo. But hey, at least blues are back in
Well,
circulation
keep
for the
in
most part.
mind, th- we don't know what the new light experience is like. For all we know,
Eh,
like I
probably
like
still the same.
it might be this still the same, but for all we know, because me and Nick don't know this, but for all we know, there is a good chance that a new light
So you
might
mean they retooled it?
outright start with zero. Like
That's a
you,
good question. That's a good question.
yeah, like you might outright start with zero as a new light, and you quite literally have to just make your way to go and getting
Up to
stuff.
10.
Yeah.
Because both of us started at 10. So that seems to be where the veterans start at in this new system. Again, if you're starting out in the new system, maybe you are 0. Maybe that's where the blues or not the blues. Maybe that's where the whites and the blues come in. We'll see. I think you do get whites when you first load up the game when I started my new experience for my new character, but that's, again, you'll have to test that and see. But yeah, blues are back in circulation. We'll see how long that lasts, but there was, like I said, a conversation people had a while ago where it's like, okay, do we need blues? Bring them back, and it was just a talk of economy. It didn't. I can't remember how that went. Anyways, we're on 7 minutes, and I've only on point two. Good God, I got to speed this up. Okay, so the new destination feels pretty good. And don't worry, again, as I said, not going to cover the story. One thing I have noticed in the new destination and the new strikes is an audio bug, and I don't think Justin incurred it yet, but
have
I
not.
have definitely incurred it. You have?
No, I have not.
Oh, you have not.
No.
Okay, when I was playing the game yesterday, which, fun fact, I've actually not completed the new expansion. I'm playing on Legendary this, which has dramatically slowed me down. But regardless, when you're fighting large groups of enemies, and especially in the new destination and the new retooled strikes, you'll find that when you're fighting mass groups of enemies, I don't know about anyone else, but I know my weapon audio and the enemy's weapon audio just starts clipping out all of a sudden. Like it just stops, sounding all of a sudden.
Properly
And then
working.
when you're fighting, yeah, not really working. And then eventually you'll come to a point where if you're fighting mass groups of enemies, you'll fight them in complete silence because your guns have gone completely muted. I don't know why. Nothing else has gone muted. Actually, no, I think the abilities as well, but I have to check that. I don't remember that part, but I definitely remember the audio for the guns, both yous and the enemies, just completely muted. So you'll have entire cases where you'll fight these massive firefights in complete silence. It's so weird. Immersion breaking is one way to put it. Also, just overall weird is one thing. I don't know what's causing that. I'd like to chalk it up to netcode, but I genuinely don't know. Like, what could be causing that? I again want to feel like the tech in me wants to say netcode, but I don't know.
We don't know
Depends
for
on how
sure
that's
there.
tooled. Yeah, don't know for sure there. That's a new one for me. I've never heard that bug happen before. Which, again, just perpetuates as long as this game goes on. More and more bugs will come up to the point where this game just falls apart. But anyways. So, that's kind of how things are in terms of the world. We've touched the strikes, we've touched the vendors, we've touched the overall... Oh yes, ammo. If you haven't noticed, then if you look at the bottom of your screen by the ammos, you'll see a heavy brick bar and a special brick bar. These are actually what you can use to actually
Well,
monitor how long it'll be until you actually get a heavy special brick, especially. Which, in fairness, in principle, which is a lot of things I will say in this, actually, in principle, it is good. Being able to actually see how long until you get a heavy and special brick will, on the surface at least, allow you to better plan and kind of like, you don't have to jump into engagements being like, okay, please give me a heavy brick or I'm dead. It allows you to better plan for things and account for things, which is nice. Don't get me wrong. Again, a lot of things on principle is good here, but at least when I was doing my testing, I found that when it comes to special ammo, it's a lot harder to actually have any, so to speak. Like, in terms of heavy, it's not bad, but I find that in terms of special, at least, like, say you're running a shotgun. This is the comparison I used with Justin earlier. Say you're running a shotgun, right? Used to be, when you occasionally popped out your shotgun, you'd have enough shots, you'd probably be enough to go it for a while before you needed to reload it. Now, oftentimes when I pull out my shotgun, and mind you, I don't use shotgun that often. Hell, most of the time I was using a heavy sidearm, whatever. Or not the heavy sidearm, the rocket sidearm, that's what they're... I would often find that when I pulled it out, I had like 4 to 5 shots left. That's it. So it would often feel like you're not having a lot in the way of special ammo. Again, I maybe not be saying that the best way, but it definitely feels like you're overall getting less special ammo. Again, heavy ammo economy seems fine here, but the special ammo seems weird. Again, maybe it's just me, but again, a lot of that's going to come down to, like I said, we're going to have to do the numbers and find out, but I don't know. We'll have to test with that one. Speaking of system changes that feel good on a surface level, let's talk the portal. The portal is an interesting... The portal, I know. It feels like an interesting addition to D2, first off, because the fact that that's the only place you can find the new destination. If you haven't heard. The world map, yeah, don't look there, it ain't going to be there. It's on the portal. Which is also a side note. It feels like they're trying to use this as a way to justify getting rid of the world map eventually. Like, it feels like they didn't get rid of that because there'd be a backlash, but they're definitely trying to get used to the people. They're definitely trying to get us used to the fact of not having it. Which feels very soulless, if you ask me.
Well,
but again, that's where we come back to this.
Here's the big thing, is, like, I went and mentioned to Nick, like, they could have very well easily gone and added the new location to the map view, because it basically functions the very same way. But they didn't. They instead put it to the portal, so... It
feels like they're trying to justify its existence.
Yeah.
Which, again, on the surface level, is good, because like we both said earlier before the show, this is good for casual players. Like, this definitely feels like they're trying to make the game more casual friendly, which, again, is good for the idea of, like, hopping on, hopping off, which, again, it feels like they're trying to turn the Destiny genre into a hobby, like kind of Fortnite. I used... That term feels like it's been overused in comparisons, but I feel like it's accurate in this case, where they're trying to turn it into a very casual game. I don't believe Destiny should fall into the term of a casual game, truth be told. I feel like that's not a good idea, but that's just my 2 cents on the matter. But like I said, it does feel like a good idea on a surface level because, again, it's easier for people to hop in, find things. Like, the whole selling point of the portal originally was everything is in one place. You don't have to go sifting through menus, which, again, you did have to win the world map somewhat to find things. And, you know, it's a lot easier for people to know where to go, which, in fairness, was a complaint a lot of new players had, and it was a justified complaint.
Yeah, like, the portal does serve exactly the purpose that it was supposed to.
Yeah, it definitely does function as intended. And again, on the surface, that's a good thing. But I do feel like that overall it robs some of the soul of the game, right? Not going to the world map and seeing the smorgasbord of worlds, you know, the sense of wonder that comes with that, if any, and all this fight for me as an old veteran. You know, all of that just kind of feels gone and replaced with this kind of very sterile portal. Which maybe, just maybe if you're me, feels a bit soulless, but I don't know. But again, on the surface, it does feel good. So,
well, and
again, overall, mileage is
it's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing one of the more new activities that feels like it is a lost sector, but in reality is actually just like a mini strike type of thing. Like, I'm doing that, one of those very activities right now, and it is pretty much set up as intended. Like, this is a solo activity. You're supposed to be able to do it on your own, do your own thing. And how it's set up, it very much is something you can do on your own.
I don't know. Again, it feels like it's a good idea in practice. It feels like a good idea in theory, and on paper it does seem to work as intended. However, how it'll actually work in practice and how overall people's feelings of it will mature over time will vary. Mine, at least initially, is not that great, but then again, I'm very much a proponent of the idea that if you want to increase a game's or decrease a game amount of menus, do what Warframe kind of does: more immersion, less screens, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
if you saw
actually,
what,
that is a minor point, because I did look into another person's opinion on the newest expansion, and they had said that the content is basically set up on the new destination, all in one location. So you could technically all in one run go and just do everything all in one go. You don't have to load to different locations. You don't have to go back to Earth and all that stuff. You can just do it all in one go. So
which
it
again,
is slightly immersion-y.
I guess, but it just kind of keeping everything in one spot, right? Like the point I was kind of going for here is right, and this is going to be a bit of a side note. Forgive me, everyone, but if you've ever seen like old World Warframe, like the OG Warframe menu, where you had the kind of world system, world menu kind of thing, kind of like what we had in Destiny, kind of still do. They eventually kind of took that out and replaced it with the orbiter, which, yeah, you still have the world map when you go to the thing, but again, it kind of feels like you're always in the world at some level. Like, again, you could also use this as me kind of proponing the idea of us having our own ship, but that's beside the point. But the point is, like I said, I feel like if you want to do something like this, you don't add like a simplistic sterile menu. You just kind of find ways to keep people in the world that doesn't involve just a menu. It feels, and again, I feel like I don't feel like I've said this a lot, but I feel like I probably should. It feels very uninspired. That feels like the overall trend here. Eh. Would I say it's apathetic in terms of how I feel about it? No, but I don't know. Anyways, that's kind of where we are at the thing. Like I said, we've touched on the menus, we've touched on the vendors, we've touched on a bunch of things. Like I said, or like Justin said, the destination is all very in one place, which in fairness is kind of how it's always been. There's not many, as far as I can tell so far, where you're jumping from one destination to another. You know, for example, in Lightfall, right? You were jumping to Europa at one point to unlock not Light Europa. You were jumping.
Well, no, the newest or not the newest, the last expansion with the Pale Heart, you did go to Europa at one point.
All in one place. A lot of running back and forth, though. Still feels a bit awkward that they're aping the Metroid shtick of Metroidvania. It's like they looked at Metroid and said, hey, let's make a Metroidvania game by just doing Metroid. But I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on it. Overall, though, one thing I haven't touched on, and I'll end off with this, is the season. We're back to calling them seasons. And so far, the season is non-existent. Maybe that'll change in a week, like it did with oh my goodness, my brain is not functioning at the moment. With Final Shape, that's the word. Maybe it'll change in a week with Final Shape, where once the official story is done, much like in Final Shape, they'll jump over to the seasonal plot line. But if you look over in the actual like world map, and if you look at the timeline, which also feels like another abandoned project, but that's beside the point. It just kind of says that we're looking at Kepler at the moment, and we're just kind of fighting the rest of the system. There's no real story for the season, which, in fairness, they said they were going to try and tie the seasonal stories more into the expansions themselves to keep the story kind of as a linear thing instead of just kind of branching. Again, we'll see how that works. At the moment, it kind of just feels like they're using that as an excuse to say there is no season at this point. But we'll see.
I mean, here,
Anyways.
actually, real quick, I'm on the timeline right now, and
Mm.
how the timeline worked with both Lightfall and Final Shape was you had little markers that had, like, in Final Shape's case, the episodes. You had the little markers that
Yes.
showed the episodes. The same thing
Yes.
was with in Lightfall. You didn't know what they were. It was marked as redacted, but in this case, you have Edge of Fate, and then you have Renegades, and Renegades is set up as if it's like another expansion on it, all on its own.
So, I don't know.
Yeah,
The actual season beside this one with Edge of Fate is kind of,
Reclamation.
yeah, Reclamation is kind of vague in its description, i.e., it feels like there is no story. So, like I said, it almost feels like they're using this as an excuse to say there is no season this time. Again, maybe that'll change like it did in Final Shape, where after a week we actually get a story. Maybe there will be some attempt at reclamation. I do not know. But
We'll see.
also, you have to keep in track that this whole shtick, right, of kind of tying them directly into the story themselves. We're coming up on 20 minutes here, but I swear it's the last thing.
Hmm.
Um, Usually we're tying these stories together, right? Usually with the actual episode that comes out of, or season, whatever, that comes out of an expansion, they're not that good. So the fact that they're now doing them alongside the expansion, I don't know. Usually the episodes that are in between the seasons and the expansions are generally much better than the ones that come directly after. Or usually the seasons that come between the actual expansions themselves are much better than the ones that come directly after them. But now that they're tying them directly into it, maybe that'll eternally doom them to be poor quality. I don't know. We will have to see. A lot of this is kind of boiling down to we'll have to look into it more, but so far, my overall initial impressions is Edge of Fate itself is a pretty good expansion. In terms of the story, which again I won't get into, it's pretty good. Looks interesting, could be going some interesting places. The area itself is pretty decent. The overall changes to the system, though, is kind of where I have some issues, like I've been kind of hearing. It's kind of, we'll have to wait and see how these play out. My
Yeah.
initial impression of all of this has been anywhere from questionable to this doesn't feel good.
I mean, I myself am thinking, okay, some of this is okay, but also some of this is like, this feels overly, extremely casual now.
Yeah, that's kind of the angle I'm going with here. I think that's
Yeah.
the best way of saying it, right? The overall content in terms of the season, not the season, the actual expansion itself, Edge of Fate itself feels very good. It feels very good.
Hmm.
But everything that's come alongside of that, that's on a systems-based level, feels good on paper, but doesn't actually feel good, at least to me. And I get the feeling Justin's in the same boat, right? Where it's like, it's overly casual now, which, again, on paper might be a good thing. It is a good thing for a game's longevity and health, but how it will actually be received by the player base is a whole other story. It's like the old military saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So, we'll see. I feel like I've been saying that a lot the last few months in relation to Destiny. We'll see.
We'll have to see.
But, yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, that's our first overall impressions of the game. A bit of good, bit of bad. Maybe it doesn't feel like there's a lot of good here, but trust me, like I said, in relation to the expansion itself, Edge of Fate does feel good. Like if you're playing Edge of Fate, it does feel like a decent expansion. There's some definitely heavy control vibes here if you know that game. There's definitely some of that there. And I won't go into too much detail about that because that's more into the actual expansion itself. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video on the expansion, we'll see. But, overall that feels very good. But in terms of the overall system changes, that's where we start having our issues. But again, we'll see how that plays out over. So yeah, that's our video for this week. Have a good one. Have a good week. Might be some issues going into next week because I think you're leaving this week. Yeah.
I'm leaving next week, so
Next
week
week. Okay,
we might
good.
be having one final video before I will not be recording them anymore.
Yeah. Justin will be going out for a while, so it'll just be me, provided everything goes well. But that should be fine. You'll just be hearing my soothing voice the entire time, which I can already hear the subscribing numbers going down as we speak.
Yeah.
So, hey, I know how I sound on recording. It's not pretty. It is the sad truth of my existence. But anyways, have a good one. Have a good week. See you all next week where we will be covering TennoCon, my coverage of that. It won't be live because I'll be at TennoCon. I'll be in a hotel room, and if we learned anything from my time in the UK, is probably not the best idea to record in a hotel room where you're sharing a room with
Well,
somebody.
don't record in a washroom unless you know what you're doing.
Don't record. That feels like a general. Don't record in a washroom in general. That feels like a general policy people should adopt in recordings. Not just me, just a general. But yeah. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I'll be looking forward to hearing all the coverage. I'll be taking, like I said, notes. Maybe we'll getting a bit of coverage. We'll see how that goes. All right, have a good week. Have a good one, everyone. Hope you enjoy the new expansion. I have, at least in terms of Edge of Fate. And see you all next week. Bye-bye, everybody.